This is Tetsasara, a video about words that enrich your life. The words I am going to introduce today are "this too shall pass." So let's begin. I first came across the term in a book called The Know-It-All: One Man's Humble Quest to Become the Smartest Person in the World. This book is a compilation of various episodes from author A.J. Jacobs, who spent a year reading the 33,000-page Encyclopedia Britannica. I won't talk about the details of the book today, but the phrase "this too shall pass," which I am going to share with you, is found in the chapter called Fable in that book. I'll quote that section. This is the scene of a conversation between the main character and his friend Bob. "Did you hear about the Middle Eastern potentate?" he asks me. This potentate called a meeting of the wise men in the kingdom, and he said, "I want you to gather all the world's knowledge together in one place so that my sons can read it and learn." The wise men went off, and after a year, they came back with 25 volumes of knowledge. This potentate looked at it and he said, "No, it's too long. Make it shorter." So the wise men went off for another year and they came back with one single volume. The potentate looked at it and said, "No, still too long." So the wise men went off for another year. When they came back, they gave the potentate a piece of paper with one sentence on it. A single sentence. You know what the sentence was? Bob looked at me. I shook my head. The sentence was, "This too shall pass." It's a good story, and it's some good wisdom, too. Maybe Bob's sentence is, in fact, the secret of life. That's the end of the quote. This too shall pass is a condensation of all the world's knowledge in one line. Amazing. It's certainly good words. Nothing lasts forever, and any good or bad thing will eventually be swept away by the flow of time. So it is a sentence that expresses this view of impermanence. This view of impermanence has been expressed in words by many people since ancient times. For example, the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "Everything is in a state of flux." Also, a Japanese medieval poet Kamo no Chome wrote in his Hojoki, "The flowing river never stops and yet the water never stays the same." Especially in Buddhism, such a view of impermanence is a central idea. However, the meaning of this phrase may change depending on how it is interpreted. I would like to introduce two interpretations of these words. First, interpretation 1. It's a way of looking at this too shall pass as something outside of oneself. In this interpretation, the person who feels impermanence is looking at the flowing world somewhat objectively and from a higher place. For example, Kamo no Chome, as mentioned earlier, looks at the river flowing outside of him with a somewhat cold eye. Next, interpretation 2. It's a way of looking at this too shall pass as including itself. This kind of talking about itself is called self-referential. For example, the poster that says "No posters are allowed." If you take this poster, as in interpretation 1, as directed outward, there is nothing wrong with it. However, if you view it as self-referential, as in interpretation 2, it is contradictory because it is itself doing the act that it prohibits. Similarly, what happens if we take "this too shall pass" as self-referential, that is, including the sentence itself? This sentence itself, "this too shall pass," will also pass and be gone. This is an obvious contradiction. This self-referential sentence proves its own rightness by disappearing by itself. If "this too shall pass" is the ultimate truth of the world, then nothing remains in this world. What do you think? Doesn't interpretation 2, which is full of self-contradictions, give us a more fundamental sense of the impermanence of this world than interpretation 1, which is simply looking at the world outside of ourselves? Perhaps the secret to the fact that the phrase "this too shall pass" is a condensation of all the world's knowledge in one line is that it expresses a very deep view of impermanence with such contradictions. It is words like these that can enrich our lives. What do you think of these words? That's it for this video. Thank you for watching it.